James Cheadle, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Photographer, videographer, publisher. I'd say your distinctive style of portrait photography has really set you apart from the crowd. And when I look at your social media, the lineup that I see there probably wouldn't look out of place on the front row of the Golden Globes or the Brit Awards. I'm not sure I've met anyone who's worked with such a cross-section of the rich and famous. So as well as portrait photography, you've also done also made a name for yourself in sports, including in bikes, and working for some of the biggest brands in the industry, which is part of the reason why I'd like to talk to you. But I think for now, let's start off with your early life, because I want to know really how you get to where you are now. So we're in Bath right now in your house, and I understand that's where you grew up.
With wet hair.
Wet hair, yes. We've just walked the dogs for about an hour or two.
Yeah, I'm expecting a dog to interrupt us at some point. But so where I started actually working on the local paper in Bath. Back in the day when local papers were a thing, they're just not a thing anymore, are they? Nobody buys a local paper anymore. But it was a daily paper, and I used to work in the dark rooms, doing all the black and white prints that would go into the paper that day. It was an evening paper.
Showing your age now.
I know. I caught the end of it. But I loved it. But it was a bit weird because you'd kind of go to work in the dark some days in the winter, and then you'd work in the dark all day, and then you'd come home in the dark. It was it was an interesting time. That got me into it. And from there I jumped onto an agency in Southampton shooting Premier League, because the Premier League started in 92, 93. I moved down to Southampton, and I was shooting Southampton and shooting, I don't know, like Crystal Palace and a few other big Prem clubs, and doing news as well. So we'd cover all the big stories in Hampshire. So there's some good ones and some awful ones. So things like the Rose West trial. Do you remember the Fred West? Obviously, people know who Fred West is, the notorious serial killer. So I sat through the Rose West trial, did the shots of people coming and going from that court for 3.5 months, which is what made me leave. Because I think I did 3.5 months of Rose West, which was shooting news, obviously. And then right off the back, I had to go back to the same court for 3.5 months to shoot the Bruce match-fixing trial. Oh. So I was sat outside Winchester Crown Court for nearly 7 or 8 months. And I thought, I can't do this. Can't do it anymore. Yeah. So that's when I started working in magazines. Went to Peterborough to work at EMAP. He became Bauer, who they're called Bauer today.
They must be one of the biggest in the industry as well.
I think they have to be. They were certainly the second or first biggest then, because they're all over Europe as well. So it's a German company, Bauer.
Yeah,
as the name might suggest. But it was EMAP then. But and sports mags.
So what age were you when you were doing that sort of journalism work?
The news stuff. So I would have been 21.
Okay.
Through to 26, maybe. I think.
It must have been great to be able to do such a broad range of photography.
Yeah, because I actually wanted to be a war photographer, funnily enough, when I first decided to try and get into the industry. I thought, well, I'll start off on the local paper. And then my dream was to go and work for the Independent, which people might look at it now and go, why would you want to work for the Independent? It's a rag. But actually back in the 90s, it was new. And it was a really respected newspaper, broadsheet. And I thought, I'll go off and shoot conflict around the world, and I thought it'd be an amazing life. It just didn't happen. Yeah. I just kind of found myself veering towards sports.
What was it that made war photography appeal to you?
I don't know. I'm looking back and I think, God, you made some weird choices as a kid, young man sort of thing. And I think it just sounded cool and adventurous. Yeah. Kind of going off to Bosnia or going off to Iraq or going off to conflicts in Africa. It sounded amazing. And I loved the photography that you'd see printed. That's what really did it. And I thought, I'd love to do that. And then 5 years working for newspapers, just kind of, you sort of see behind the curtain and you think, oh God, it's a pretty nasty industry, really.
I think there was a time when if during war, if people saw somebody wearing a press body armour, I guess, that they might disregard them and not see them as a target. But that seemed to have changed since maybe Afghan. It
did, yeah. Yeah. If you look back to some of the stories of the Vietnam War, where Kappa, or Kappa was was it the Spanish Civil War?
Not the clothing brand.
No, no, Kappa slappers. I always think of that. You could basically go onto the front line and not be shot at because you had your white press bib on.
Yeah,
you're right. And then I think it all changed, didn't it?
Yeah,
in the 2000s. Suddenly the Israelis were shooting press and the Afghanis were shooting press. We don't like the glass straw.
I like the glass straw, but the jangling is not ideal for the audio.
Yeah. So and I realised after working in newspapers, news media, I just thought I don't want to spend a life working for these people.
Yeah.
You know, because when you work at an agency, you do all sorts, and sometimes you're doing nice features on, I don't know, like the inventor of the lava lamp, and it's nice stuff for the Guardian or the Telegraph, and then the next day you're shooting. You're sort of hanging around outside a court because there's some low-life sexual assault case, and you think, this is awful. You know, the shots you see of people leaving court with their hands over their face and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And that's what I couldn't stand. So I thought, let's get into magazines.
Yeah.
And magazines is glamorous compared to newspapers.
Did that play with your morals a little bit, sort of getting people at their lowest?
Yeah, it did. In fact, the I say that the court cases back to back was the catalyst for leaving, but actually there was another job I shot, and it was an old man in I should laugh, it wasn't funny. An old man in somewhere like Gosport in Hampshire, and he'd won some money on the lottery, I seem to remember. And then he'd married he was about 17, he'd married some young girl who then divorced him 5 days after marrying him, and then claiming half of his, it was something like that. I can't think of the exact details. That was the gist of the story. And the Daily Mail said, we need a shot of this guy. So I knocked on his door and said, from the Daily Mail, can I do a quick shot? And he's like, no, I don't want to. So I'm like, okay, phone in, doesn't want to. I'll stand outside and just shoot him when he comes out his door. I thought, I can't do this. Yeah. And then I sat there, and he came and he went, and I thought, I missed him. I kind of missed him on purpose, if you know what I mean. And then thinking I could just knock off at 5 and somebody else would come along. And they said, just stay there till you get him. And I thought, and then I did take a picture, and the bloke just went, why are you doing this to me?
Yeah. And
you're like, you're right, why am I doing this to you? And that's when I left. That was it. And you think, yeah, it's awful feeling. Oh. And it was just there's that separation between the guy in the desk in London, no empathy for what this guy's just gone through. It's just an old bloke in a terraced house in Gosport.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought I'll go shoot football.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So
you moved on to a self-employed life in 2000, was it?
Yeah, that was after leaving EMAP, yeah.
And so how did you find the transition from working for an employer to then working for yourself?
Well, you'll know this. It's scary at first, isn't it? Because you don't know. It's kind of like a step into the dark, isn't it? And then the first few months, you're kind of worried about the phone not ringing. And you go, if like every freelancer who works in our industry will know that you go a week or two and the phone doesn't ring, sometimes longer. And when that first happens, you're like, people have forgotten me. It's that awful feeling. Have they lost my number? What's going on here?
Yeah.
But after a year, it's great. It'd be hard to go back.
I personally, I've been self-employed my entire working life.
Oh, you have?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. So you haven't had to go through the sort of the sausage factory of being staff somewhere? No,
and I look at it now from the outside, and I see why people do it, and the need to get a name for yourself in the industry, and also to get the experience in the industry. You probably need to do that. The sausage factory.
Yeah.
thing. It's sometimes I do look at it from the outside and think, wow, I'm very grateful of the fact that I managed to swerve that.
Yeah, I mean, we've all known. If you haven't worked as a staff, you probably know people. And there's just one job after the other, non-stop. But the good thing about that is it does teach you how to work fast and turn jobs around. Whereas something I've found that was really kind of what's the word, sort of suited me well when I left employment, because I just work so quick.
Yeah.
And you could just move on from one job to the next. And you got quite good at getting around, which you do anyways, I think, in our business. Just someone says, can you get yourself over to Los Angeles?
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, no problem.
Well, you've literally just had a phone call that comes through.
Oh, no, yeah.
This.
I don't know where I'm going yet, though. That's the funny thing about it. He didn't say, did he?
No.
He said it'd be abroad somewhere. Oh, okay.
Yeah. And that's what I love about this industry. And when you work as a freelancer, 1 month is never the same, is it? 1 month to the next.
No, and that's brilliant, isn't it? Even if you work in one particular subject matter, like biking, or I've worked in golf and I've worked in football and rugby.
Yeah.
No two jobs are the same. You're not doing the same job again and again like you do when you have a staff job.
No.
It's always a different reason for doing it, or it's in a different place, or so there's no commute. There's no. Yeah. It's great. I love it.
To me, one of the biggest things is the different people that you meet, and from one month to the next, as I was saying, you might not meet the same person for the following month that you did the month before. It's and there aren't many industries like that, I don't think, where you're just continually working with different people. And I guess we'll come on to the people that you've met in your working life. But at this stage, what most interests me is your travels and the places that you've been. And from just the very basic research that I've done, I was intrigued about the time that you spent in the Sahara.
Oh yeah, my little road trips across the Sahara. I love that. That first one was I didn't see it. A mate of mine saw this advert in the Times saying people needed for Banger Rally to Senegal. I think it was free entry, but the car can't cost any more than £100.
Ah, yeah. Okay.
So that was the only restriction on who could come. You had to buy a car. It wasn't really. I mean, most people respected it for £100.
The Mongol Rally was another one like that.
Yeah, that came a few years. I think the guy called Julian Knoll, he was an ex-stockbroker, or even could have been a stockbroker at the time. He came up with this idea. It's called, so everyone's heard of the Paris-Dakar Rally. Well, this was the Plymouth-Dakar Rally. So you got the ferry from Plymouth over to France, and then as you go down through France, down through Spain, got the ferry to Morocco, and all the way down across the Sahara, Mauritania, in a car that cost £100. And it's amazing that all the cars made it.
Wow.
I think all but one out of 30 made it. I think the one that I wasn't really in a car. I was with some friends who were going, but I was hopping from car to car because I got a commission off Top Gear to shoot that, Top Gear magazine. And the car that I was in ended up getting left in a campsite in a place called Toubacouta in Senegal.
Yeah.
But it died there, but it got to Senegal, if you know what I mean.
I know the ones on the Mongol Rally. I think the intention of that one was to donate the cars to the local emergency services.
Yeah, and I think they had a CC restriction, didn't they?
Yes.
So it was 1,000 CC, I think. So they had to be little
Fiat Pandas,
Fiats and stuff. Yeah,
very popular.
The Fiat Panda 4x4 was the one to have, wasn't it? For that.
Oh, legendary car.
Well, it is, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, I guess they're Lada Nivas. What are they? They're probably bigger than 1 litre, aren't they?
Okay.
Was it Lada Riva? Niva Riva, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to. We were going to do that one, but we never got around to it. But I went back across the Sahara a second time in a Merc that I paid £400 for, so it's a bit luxury that time.
Well, you fit right in with an old Mercedes.
You do, yeah. And we sold that actually because because it was my car. We sold it. I paid £150 for it, I think, in Peterborough. And I sold it to a Gambian taxi firm for about €1,500. It was good.
Amazing.
But that's what the French kids used to do, by the way. They'd like gap years, or college kids would buy old Berks in France and then drive them to Dakar in Senegal.
Love it.
And flog them and get enough money to pay for their way home again.
So that travelling to Dakar in a Mercedes sounds like quite a nice way of doing it. But I understand as well you've crossed India in a rickshaw as well.
Yeah, twice. Yeah. Once was for... what did I do it twice? Oh, I did it once. There was a British Indian guy who was organising it, and I did that for a laugh. I don't know. I probably sold the pictures to a magazine or to FHM Latvia or something like that, or and then Loaded magazine caught wind of it. So, can you do it again for us? Yeah. So I did it again. It was actually quite bad. So I think we did it over New Year's once, and it's when I had a 1-year-old baby, so it was a bit of a bad timing at the time. But it's kind of unfortunate. The job goes that way sometimes. But yeah, so twice across India.
I've only been to India once before, but the one thing that really stood out to me was the quality of the air pollution, lack of quality. Yeah,
we weren't really in. We did end up in Mumbai both times, but Mumbai never feels that bad for air pollution.
Really?
But it's by the sea, isn't it? I don't know whether that helps. It's bad for open sewers and.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, something else, aren't they? It's just obnoxious when you get near one. But
we were at this little port resort in India, Fort Kochi, Fort Cochin.
Oh, in Kerala. Yeah.
And I think it may be first or second day that we were there, and we said, let's go and watch the sunset. And so we went down to the beach, and all the big old Chinese fishing nets they've got on the beach. They're stunning. But we thought we'll go and watch the sunset. And for one, the haze was so strong on the horizon that the sun had already just disappeared into the haze.
It just glows, doesn't it?
Yeah. And then the other thing was we were sat there just sort of taking it in, absorbing it, and lots of locals around taking pictures of each other. And, this is pretty idyllic. But you look down, you saw the litter, the rubbish there. And then amongst the rubbish, there was this dead cat just flat on its back, just looking up like that. And I thought like that perfectly sums up this moment.
That's awful. I've got shots in Africa where the second time when I went in the Merc, we kind of killed two birds with one stone. So I was driving this Merc and we were going to sell this story to car magazines. And my friend Gary Inman is a really well-known motorcycle journalist. He managed to talk Benelli, who are, if you don't know, they're quite an exotic Italian legacy brand, but they're always coming and going in and out of business because they're just sort of badly run Italian bike manufacturer, but beautiful bikes. They brought out this street fighter called a TNT, which was not suited to off-road. And he's like, I want to ride that across the Sahara. So we had me in the Merc and him on the Benelli TNT.
Whoa.
And we've got this lovely shot. You're talking about dead animals. This huge, like an ox, just lying on the side of the road with its old eyes pecked out, and these sort of Warner Brothers style vultures, like cartoon vultures, just kind of pecking at it and hopping around. You know, the ones with the bald necks.
Yeah.
And they look scraggy and horrible. But it's funny going back to the first time we went to across the Sahara, because people kind of paint a bit of an idyllic picture of traveling down there, but we got mob attacked going through the Mauritanian border. Yeah. Well, they tried to extort money out of us because there were probably about 25 cars came through in that convoy, which they probably weren't expecting that day. Bangers too. And all the locals turned up with knives and saying, well, you all got to give us 25 euros each, which doesn't sound like a lot of money with hindsight. And I don't know why we didn't just pay it and go, but we were all like, no, not paying that.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't let us go. And then it got more and more intimidating and it started getting dark. So one of the guys in our group went, and they barricaded us in with this metal gate. But they kind of, because it's Africa, it wasn't really fixed properly. Yeah. So we're like, I think we could probably bash through that. Because somebody did have a Lada Niva, funny enough, I mentioned it earlier, with a bull bar on the front. Like, just bash our way through. So we did this, bash through, worked. And then the mob started throwing rocks and shaking the cars. And it was like, oh, God. Wow. And then all the cars started smashing into each other because...
Yeah.
Like adrenaline was kind of pumping. And
get out.
Yeah, and our driver in my car is a guy from Norwich, took a rock in the head and just literally passed out on the steering wheel, only for about 20 seconds. So I came off the mic then. And the horns going, and everyone's bashing into the back of us trying to get out because everyone's car's being pelted with rocks.
Yeah.
And he suddenly wakes up, blood pouring down his face. And we get out. And it was just funny, it all got comedy after that because we kind of got out and he's like, I don't know what I'm doing, I can't see. And his mate's holding the wheel. Luckily, it's an automatic for Granada, 3 litre.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Done up in Budweiser colours, but it said no Weiser instead of Budweiser. And which was apt. And then you got up the road, and anyone will know this in Africa, you have passport control, then you always have douane, customs. Certainly we're out in Africa when I've driven, 200 metres up the road. So we thought we were free, and you get stopped at the next place. And everyone's like getting the passports out quick and trying to show them again. Yeah. You have to have these little the forms where you've ticked your personality, your profession, your age, date of birth, place of birth, and they're going through. And we could hear this mob coming up the road.
Oh my God.
And we're kind of like, are we safe here? Because we're by the customs. Yeah. And then suddenly everyone just started driving through the customs.
Yeah.
And nothing happened there. We all drove through 30 cars and then just went up the road and that was it.
It reminds me of the stories that you hear of Top Gear when they were in Argentina, and
I think I saw that one.
Yeah. And it's you say you've worked with the Top Gear sort of crew in the past. Did you work with them during the Clarkson years as well?
No, I didn't. No, I did the first job for them when he's the guy off Friends,
Matt Blanc.
Yeah, he was there, and I couldn't tell you who the other presenters were now.
Was Eddie Jordan part of it then or not?
Not then. Yeah. It was
Chris Harris probably was doing it
before his time.
Still fine.
I've worked with Chris Harris since then, but yeah. Yeah.
Does it surprise you should we say, the amount of accidents that they've had over the years?
It's got to be diplomatic now, haven't I?
Yeah, of course. I mean, not that anyone's going to watch this podcast, but it does seem like they seem to come a cropper.
They do fly close to the edge, I would say. Yeah. And clearly that's not exactly a revelation, is it? Because you've had Richard Hammond had a pretty bad smash, and now Freddie Flintoff's had his bad smash, which is such a shame. He's such a lovely guy. And on films I've worked with him, he's had a few little spills. Yeah. And you kind of feel like this is dangerous. Because it's very easy to think, oh, it's just TV, it's not dangerous. But it is. Yeah. Yeah, they're really pushing it. Well, really are.
In the industry that I mostly work in bikes, it's amazing that more accidents don't happen.
Yeah.
Touch wood. But yeah, when you're in cars that are traveling at that speed, and it always amazes me when they have a camera set up on the outside of a corner, and then you've got sort of Chris Harris sticking it sideways all the way around the corner. And something
I didn't know till I worked on a film last year with him. They have this amazing tracking car. What's the big Ford pickup? Not the Ranger, the next one up. Yeah. It's it's a huge, beautiful, beefed up
F-150 or something.
It's that size, yeah. But it's the European kind of equivalent, yeah. And they've got this big jib on the back, comes over the front, can go backwards, and there's a guy in the back of this truck, someone driving it and someone in the back operating the camera. Bloody clever guys, because the camera work off those is amazing. But they're going the opposite way around the circuits. Wow. To the cars, and the cars are drifting, and they've got to time it. So the car drifts around a corner, and they come up the inside, going the other way, and it's I had a little run out because I go, "Do you want to do some tracking shots for me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, all right." And I was starting thinking, this is nuts.
Yeah.
It's no good for tracking stills going the wrong way to the cars, but still, yeah.
I actually remember you on a bike shoot sort of mentioning that someone had said, like, probably don't film out the back of that car because it's quite dangerous. And then you said, well, I filmed out the back of a Audi RS something or other at Silverstone, travelling at 120 miles an hour.
That was for motorcycle news. I think I should probably, they don't think they do it anymore, but we were shooting Niall Mackenzie. Closed circuit, because they close for lunch. Every circuit seems to close for lunch. And we just, bombing around. Yeah. Because cars are easier to fake it, because you can come into a corner quite slow in a car and boot it. You can just kick out the rear end if it's rear-wheel drive. But bikes, you can't fake it, because you have to lean it over, and you can't lean it over unless you're going quick enough. So, yeah, we're absolutely ragging it around Silverstone, and I'm just sort of rolling around in the back. And I was thinking, I probably should have had some straps. Yeah. But okay, so, you're not going to, have you ever been on a bike shoot when someone's been hitting some jumps and hurt themselves?
I was in Portugal on a sunshine shoot with GmbN.
Yeah.
And Blake had quite a big off. And I remember I was able to drive the car up to the point where I think he hit his head and was feeling pretty drowsy. I'm not sure if he passed out, but I remember picking him up in the car and just asking him if he was okay, and he just sat there in silence. Which
is never good.
No, not good. But
not from Blake, especially.
Yeah, and it's very, very rare that those guys mess up, I find.
Yeah. Because they're such regular riders, that Blake nails certain tricks, like he's having breakfast, So for him, it's unusual. I've never seen Blake screw up.
And it's funny enough, it was actually caught on camera, but funnily enough, it was on such a mundane feature, and it was just
it's the way it works, though, isn't it? Sometimes.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to think of all the mountain bike shoots I've done. I've had a few close calls with media riders.
Yeah.
Because you know what it's like as well when you think, oh right, this is the 15th take, and that's when riders sometimes get, I don't know, tired, complacent. I don't know what it is, or try something different after. But they done nothing bad though on bikes.
We actually we were speaking about the Continental shoot that I did at Dovey a year or so ago for the launch of their new tyres, and I was working with Charlie Hatton, Bernard Kerr, Ronan Dunn, three of them together, just having so much fun and
herding cats.
Yeah, it was like herding cats, but they were so professional and so just happy to help. And
Yeah.
it was so, like, for me, I'd only worked with Charlie before, and the other guys were just brilliant. And the one thing that really stood out was Ronan was, I must have been 18, maybe 19 at the time. And he was riding like he was in a World Cup. I just couldn't believe the pace he was carrying, how wild he was. And ironically, it was Charlie, who I didn't think was riding quite as hard, and he ended up sticking it over the bars. And I remember him falling into my shot, into frame, like straight over the bars, and landed flat on his chest, and just looked to his right and just looked at me. And I went, "You okay, mate?" And he went, "Yeah." And most people would just be like floored, probably knocked out, but he was just like, "Yeah, fine."
Do you ever get that feeling when you think, "Oh, I want to do that again," and I feel bad because it's a bit of a push up?
Yeah.
And you're like, "Can I ask him to push up again and do that?" You know, because it's exhausting doing that again and again and again for the riders. And there's always a part of you, and you think, oh, is it reasonable for me to ask? Because sometimes you've got it in the can, but you think, I'd like to do that wide as well, or I'd like to do it. And there's always that awkward moment. You think, go on, just up again one more time.
It's that classic, just one more shot.
One more shot, yeah.
Yeah, no one likes to hear it.
It's not true though, is it?
No, it never is.
One more shot, yeah, right.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've briefly covered bikes and all the other places you travel to, but you've also made a real name for yourself with portrait photography. That, to me, seems to be what you're best known for. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
And
It's what I like doing the most, if I'm honest.
I was going to say, do you enjoy that the most?
Yeah, I do. I think, I wouldn't like to just do it, because I don't like to just do any one thing. I'm sure you feel the same way. It's not, you said earlier about it, it's great having no 2 days the same. Yeah. But I love the end result of portraits. There's something about it, isn't there? Just staring at someone's soul. Yeah. Capturing someone's soul.
Yeah. So I'd like to understand the sort of process that you used from the moment that you first meet somebody, say on the day, to when you finally press that shutter. Do you have a process that you work through to get to the point where you're like, okay, I'm happy now to shoot you?
I wish I could say there was, but often it's kind of an hour of prep, and then 10 minutes, if that, of trying to get the shot right, and then you've lit it using somebody else's head, and then somebody else comes in and their nose is a different shape, their eyes are more sunken, and so you have to try and work. Oh, I've got to move that light, got to move this light, and so it's probably not as carefully planned out as you'd probably like to hear, because it's just often you're shooting people who have been photographed 5 billion times, and you just think, well, I'll just light it the right way. Yeah. That's how I look at it. I just want to light it how I want it to lit for it to be lit, and then give it a style.
Yes. And
then hopefully in that moment, those 10 minutes when you're shooting someone, they give you something. I guess that's give you a part of themselves. Yeah. Because it is, isn't it? It's like it's the same with an interview, isn't it? It's the same with getting a good shot of a rider.
Yeah.
You know, they could just do the bog standard, but you want them. You just extra bit is what you want, isn't it? Always the extra bit to make it to stand out, and that's what it's like doing a portrait.
You seem to have an ability to bring out the character in the person that you shoot, and even if it's in a dark room.
I like dark rooms.
Yeah, I can tell you like a dark room. Just only have to look at your social media to see that.
A lot of darkness.
But how is it that you find a way of I guess, separating one person from another in the style that you shoot?
I'll tell you one thing you have to. I did a shoot. I could probably say this because it hasn't come out yet, but I imagine it will be out by the time this podcast comes out. With Spurs' manager last week. Footballers' managers especially, it's especially hard to photograph because they don't really... Like, you shoot an actor and they understand performance. And if you shoot a mountain bike professional, they're kind of fun, aren't they?
Yeah.
What they do is high energy, high risk. So they're not really worried about looking a bit silly in a picture. Football managers are so high profile, and there's so little interest in them doing the actual portrait shoot. They're doing it because they probably feel they've been told to by the club press or by whatever sponsor. So in that situation, you just have to assume you're going to get nothing and have to keep moving people to a good angle. Maybe put their hands in a certain place, and then maybe you get something, but you have to work on the lines you won't and just light it nicely. But then you shoot other players. I did a nice shoot with Joe Marler. I don't know if everybody will know who Joe Marler is watching this, but he's the England hooker. plays for Harlequins, and he's just amazing. You shoot him, and the man's just a natural born performer, like crazy, just eyes bulging, good expressions, and you think, oh, I could do this all day and not take a bad frame. So it really does depend on the person.
It's nice working with somebody that's just a natural.
Yeah, it is, and it's somebody who, and then he wants to look at the back of the camera and see what's just been shot. Whereas, you know, I'm sure you've worked with people, and you know that you kind of, some people want to be there, and it's great fun, and you can see it in the end result, and you know sometimes you're in a shoot, and you kind of know that you're just an interruption in someone's day. Yeah. You've all been there, haven't we?
Yeah. And
you kind of feel like, okay, I've got 10 minutes, let's get this over and done with, with as least pain as possible.
I hate a shoot that's it's either rushed or you get the feeling that somebody doesn't want to be there.
Yeah, and you can, even if it's not said, you can feel it, can't you? There's a kind of atmosphere when you get it with CEOs sometimes where, you know, I went through a phase of shooting CEOs of car companies about 2 or 3 years ago, and they're like that, busy people, not really fussed about being in a in-flight magazine, which is what we used to shoot them for. Some were great, but some were just like literally looking at their watch thinking, how long is it's going to be? Much longer? It's been 10 minutes. Got a deal to do with Volvo, sort of thing, you know. But, you know, but then you get, let's say you get your Joe Marlows and you think, oh, I could shoot him all day. Or try to think, good, it's like Michael Palins, people like that. And people understand. It's a shame because I think if you go into a photo shoot not wanting to be there, it can really show, can't it? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? You kind of, whereas if you go into it, even if you're only going to give someone 5 minutes, just give them a good 5 minutes, and then it'll benefit everyone.
Is Michael Palin the nicest person you've ever met?
Yes. I bet that comes as no surprise to anyone, does it? You never meet anybody who says, oh, I hate that Michael Palin character.
Yeah.
Like, he's just universally loved. And he was so nice, because the shoot we did, it was for a launch of his book, the Sahara book. That's how long ago it was.
Yeah.
You don't hear from him anymore, do you?
No, you don't.
But we wanted to have, we had this bit of plywood with a little kind of semicircle taken out of it. So the idea was we put it on the table, he'd crouch down behind it, put his neck through the semicircle, and it was all sand. We got bags of sand. And we shot it on a blue backdrop. So it looked like he was buried up to his neck in sand. And we thought, he'll never do it. And he's like, yeah, do it. Because you can see, I feel weird. He took all his shirt off and his T-shirt off. It was just there. He would have done it again. He loved it. It was brilliant. And he understood that, you know, his input was important to what happened.
Yeah.
But he's good. Yeah, brilliant.
Who's most surprised you in terms of people you've met? Has there been any people when you thought this is going to be tricky and then they turned out to really quite impress you?
Oh, dare I say it?
Go on, say
Donald Trump.
Say the big man.
Donald Trump.
Yeah, I didn't want to bring him up, to be honest, but I think it's probably necessary because you must spend...
The elephant in the room.
Yeah, is the big orange elephant in the room.
Yeah. And weirdly, isn't the elephant the symbol for the Republican Party?
Yeah.
Was it a donkey?
One of
which?
One of them an elephant.
Yeah, I don't know. But he wasn't president then. It was the year before.
So that was a golf shoot, was it?
Yeah, it was. He was trying to get his new links course up in Aberdeen into Golf World magazine. It was quite a prestigious title. It's gone now, unfortunately. And they're top 100 golf courses in the UK.
Yeah. And
he wanted to get his up there. I think he was whining and dining us. So he had a reason to be nice to us, let's be honest. But he was just hilarious. I didn't know what was to come at that point.
Yeah.
So you just leave thinking, oh, he was nice. Funny, you know, kind of.
How does a day go from you being introduced to Donald Trump to then you being spent? Were you then sort of one-on-one with him?
Yeah. So the idea was that the journalist, who I think was, who was the journalist? God, he's going to hate me if he sees this. What's he called? I've forgotten who it was now. It doesn't matter.
If you think it after, I can just dub it in.
Yeah. A little caption on the screen.
It'll come to you.
So they played a round of golf with him, and I tagged along. I didn't hit any balls. I'm crap at golf. And then I met him on the 10th tee box for the good view, and I was all set up with lights and everything. And he comes along, and they stop playing, and they did 10 minutes of portraiture, have a laugh, a giggle, make some jokes. Wouldn't take his hat off though, because he's got crazy hair, and it doesn't look good after wearing a hat. And then carried on playing. And when I walked around with him for the back nine, it was like hanging out with anyone really. He was just making jokes.
Yeah.
asking how my kids were. Where are you from? Oh, Bath. Oh, I haven't been to Bath. You know, this kind of stuff. And that was what was unusual about it, because the guy didn't have to say anything to me, but he was very personable. But I could understand how he was trying to get his golf course up the rankings in the top 100. And he thought, I'll be nice to these guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. It did work. I think he did get a good ranking after that.
Okay.
Good course, though.
I can imagine.
Yeah. Golf Links International, Aberdeen. It's good.
I think you once told me a story of a time that you shot Bruce Forsyth. And
Oh, yeah.
he asked you to join him to watch an England football match.
I can talk about this now because he's dead.
Yeah, I guess.
But he was horrible. I shouldn't say it. I was like, oh no, Bruce, he's national treasure. He was so rude. So rude.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's quite nasty. And I think at the end he realised he was a bit nasty. He's like, why don't you come back to mine and watch it? Because we wouldn't have got back. He knew the kickoff was 20 minutes after we finished shooting. He lived on the Wentworth estate. We were shooting on the course there. And he goes, come back to mine and watch the match. And I remember thinking, I don't want to spend another second in this man's company.
Yeah.
And you kind of felt like it would have been a good story to tell, wouldn't it? Sitting on the couch with Brucey watching the England match. But no.
Surreal.
And it was funny because me and the journalist were like, nah, let's get out of it. This guy's horrible.
You seem to have a bit of a history with shooting people that are no longer with us.
Dead.
Yeah.
I know, it's funny, isn't it?
Were
Curse.
there any deaths that really shocked you and maybe stuck with you? You thought, what a shame.
Keith Flint.
Yeah.
Yeah, what a shame. And do you know what? I knew the guy Chester Bennington, is it?
Yes.
From Lincoln Park. Yeah, both those ones.
Wow.
Because they were suicides, weren't they?
Yeah.
I mean, a few have died from disease or other causes. Yeah, they're not natural, but you know but yeah, those two.
The shoot that you did with Keith Flint was pretty iconic.
Yeah, I really liked that shoot. I really liked him as well, in fact.
Yeah.
But that was funny because I'd bumped into him once at, it must have been in 1999, at the Manchester Indoor Arena. At a Nassim Hamid, the boxer? Yeah, the Nassim Hamid fight.
Nassim.
And I was there shooting the fight and for a magazine. And I thought, it's the Prodigy. It's Liam and Kermit and Keith. So when I said hello, I thought I'll try to get a quick shot of them because I was a fan, really. And then they just turned around and went, fuck off. I thought, oh, all right, okay. And it's like, oh, okay, whatever.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah, no, then I saw, I kind of bumped, I get commissioned to shoot him sort of 12 years later. When was I can't think when that shoot was, 2014, 2015? Yeah, and he couldn't have been nicer. Yeah. Lovely guy. And it was at a bike racing thing as well, because he's quite a good bike racer, motorcycle racer.
Yeah.
In fact, I think he won the National Endurance Series.
Is that right?
Yeah. I don't know which series. I don't know much about that side of motorcycle racing. But he was good. You know, he was quite a good, fast rider.
What talent.
Yeah, and then he managed a team after that. But so it was at I think Cadwell or Alton Park.
His dad actually lived about 4 doors down from me on the little lane that I grew up on.
Oh, right. In Essex.
And in Essex, yeah. And he lived about 10 minutes up the road. But I remember as a kid riding on my bike down the road, and I'd sometimes see him rock up in his Ferrari. And then a few months later, I remember he was in a McLaren F1, and I was just so like, just
proper rock star.
Oh my god! Yeah. But he didn't look like the Keith Flint that you would see on TV or in his music videos. He would just look like your normal dad.
Yeah, no, it's funny, and you actually see some stuff of him. He's been out on shoots, as in game bird shoots.
Okay,
and he's got a sort of tweed jacket on and a flat cap.
Yes,
it's like the same guy did Firestarter.
Yeah,
it's like this guy. It's good for him. I liked him. He was brilliant.
You worked with Vinnie Jones on that YT shoot.
Oh, on the
right?
decoy shoot.
Yes.
Yeah, their first e-bike.
How
Again,
was that?
brilliant. He was brilliant too.
Yeah,
I'd shot him before actually, a couple of times for football magazines when he was a player.
Oh yeah, of course.
And he wasn't so nice then.
Well, I've seen some clips from back then in football.
In fact, one of the first decent football action shots I took was him sort of beasting Matt Letizia at the Dell.
Yeah,
down the left wing.
Yeah.
But for the YT shoot, because that was a nice shoot. If anyone hasn't seen it, go and check it out. It's the kind of the ghost story up in Loch Lomond way. Yeah, he was good.
Yeah,
he comes across as a bit, I can't, what's the word? Aloof, but I think he's a nice man. I think.
So bikes. Have you spent much time on e-bikes?
Only as a sort of camera bike.
Yeah.
So when I've been on shoots up in the mountains, I've been giving them to get around on because it's so much easier when you've got 20 kg on your back to have an e-bike.
So I was lucky that I came into shooting bikes around about the time that e-mountain bikes were starting to become popular. So I managed to kind of swerve the kind of going on a shoot on a regular mountain bike and having to keep up with pro riders and lug around a load of gear. Did you?
We did it together, didn't we, in Sailback last year? Where I brought my own bike over.
Yes,
funny enough, as a YT, and it's hard work, isn't it?
Yeah.
In fact, I found it just even getting to the ski lift, the bike lift was up a bloody great big hill with 20 kilograms on your back.
It doesn't take much to take it out of you when you're carrying that much weight.
Yeah, it does, and it's if you've got to keep stopping, and also if you've got to go back up, that's the problem because sometimes you come down, you work a stretch of a trail, don't you?
Yes.
And you think, oh right, I've got to get up again.
Yeah,
and it's hard. It's hard going up a trail, a single track. It's not great at the best of times, but when you're trying to carrying your cameras on the back, so.
It's e-bikes have definitely made the whole filming thing a lot easier.
I poo-pooed them for so long. Yeah. I was like, I don't know about this. You know, it's kind of cheating. And then it's before I worked with you in Sailback last year. I was in Lenzerheide doing something with laser helmets, and they got us all. What's the Shimano brand of bike? They do a sort of frame set. I
don't know.
They've got their own brand almost, haven't they, Shimano?
Have they?
Yeah, I think we had them, whatever they are, I've forgotten now. There's so many new brands now. It's hard to keep up, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially in Europe, when you go to a bike park and you're like, what the bloody hell's... I didn't know propane were a thing until last year.
It's exploded, hasn't it?
Yeah, huge. And I had this e-bike. I thought, my God, this is amazing. And actually, I always thought, they're going to be crap. It's going to be heavy and cumbersome. But actually, we were talking about this a while ago, but because of that motor, everyone knows this when I'm talking about it, but for me, it was a revelation. I thought, this makes you feel so confident in the air. And even when you've got your cameras on your back, where you wouldn't normally want to do anything because the risk of bailing, landing on your back or something is just too big. It gives you so much confidence, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Riding on an e-bike.
That low centre of gravity. It's just amazing how much stability it gives you.
Oh, it's brilliant. So I think my next bike will be an e-bike.
Do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I won't go mad, but I'll have...
Mountain bike?
Oh, I won't get an e-road bike because I only ride the road bike because I hate it. I only ride it for fitness. Yeah. So I don't see the point in getting one. But an e-bike, EMBN, yeah.
I think e-mountain bike combined with a regular road bike is a perfect combo because you can get all your exercise, all your fitness in on the road bike and you can have all your fun on the mountain bike. Yeah.
I don't enjoy riding the road bike that much. I do it. I don't mind it. Don't get me wrong. It's not awful. But if I want to have fun, you take the mountain bike out. If I want to go and get rid of a few pounds, I'll start riding the road bike for a few weeks. Yeah. That's how I look at it. Because we're in Bath. I don't know if anyone knows it, but it's quite congested around here. So unless you go out really early on a Sunday, which isn't my bag, it's just a bit annoying. Yeah. You know, and you go onto the back lanes, it's fine, but they only take you so far.
True.
So, yeah.
I know a lot of people, the way they get into the e-bikes is that they buy their partner maybe an e-bike and then they realise, oh, actually, I think I'll get one for myself.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting as well, because I remember being at Bike Park Wales 2019 and there were none. And then you go now and what, 25%, do you think?
Maybe more.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it? It comes at you fast, isn't it? Yeah,
if you go to a busy trail centre these days, I think it's almost a 50-50 split.
And especially in Europe.
Yeah.
Yeah, the European ones. And what's fascinating to me is that you see whole families on them. So two teenagers, a mother and a father blasting down the trails on. And you're thinking, wow, that's a lot of money on bikes for a family. Because, but it's just that's where they've gone straight to, the kids have gone straight to e-bike.
Yeah.
So they probably won't own an analog bike.
True.
Because it's hard to go back. You get e-bike legs quite quick, don't you?
You do. It's a concern that because I think everyone almost needs to earn their stripes, don't they?
Yeah.
And then discover the greatness of e-bikes. So it's, I don't know, is that a bad thing? I don't know.
It's like shooting film before you shoot digital.
Yeah.
It's kind of good because you learn how to expose properly and how to play with the settings. But you're right. I feel like it's like getting an automatic car in a way, isn't it?
Yeah, true.
I got my first automatic car. I'm not going back.
Yeah.
I'm not going back.
I know.
It's too easy. And I think if I get an e-bike, that'll be it. I don't think I'll have another analog bike.
No, I agree.
But then the problem always is, and again, it's like the age-old problem, once you get when your mates have to have it too, because otherwise you just can't ride with anyone, can you?
No.
Otherwise, you have to just go really slow so your mates can catch up.
Well, you got the next issue then is the lightweight e-bike,
Yeah.
which is somewhere in the middle. So your mates will then have to have a lightweight e-bike as well.
Yeah. I mean, I was riding at Cumcarn probably about a month ago now. And we're probably all fairly fit for our age, me and my friends. And a bunch of these lads came past us, just flew past on e-bikes. And we're kind of thinking, how do you put it nicely? They weren't fit-looking lads, if you know what I mean. But the way they just blast past you, and you're thinking, oh, I don't know. That kind of put me off then. But, it will happen. It will happen. I mean, do you ever ride your analog bike anymore?
I only really ride it at bike parks and in the Alps.
Okay.
So otherwise it gathers dust.
So with an uplift.
Yes. Yeah. It's and it is a weird thing to transition back to a regular mountain bike. The minute that I pull it off the rack and jump on it for the first time, usually at the top of a trail, I don't know, like a bike park somewhere.
I think the brakes are rubbing.
Yeah, well, usually it's pretty not in great condition, and it just feels so light. It feels like I've just jumped on a road bike.
Yeah. It's just mad, really, isn't it? The difference between a mountain bike and a road bike is, well, what's a good road bike? 8 kg? I don't know.
A lot these days, it could be.
I can see a future where all bikes are e-bikes very soon, actually.
Yeah.
Don't you think? I mean, again, like, you know how we said about a bike park, it was like none, 1 or 2 you might see 5 years ago, and now it's 25, 30%.
Yeah.
Well, if you walk around the streets, you look at, like just Doris cycling up the road to get some bread from the bakery.
Yeah.
Well, they're on e-bikes now.
Yeah.
It's mad, isn't it?
It's true.
And probably now it's 50-50 on the road, I would say. And these are people that aren't into bikes. They're not lusting after the latest, whatever, They just think, oh, get a bike, e-bike. Makes sense.
Great to see.
It is. It's mad. And it'll get more people into it as well, because let's be honest, I don't know, living in Bath, it's a lot of hills here, as we found out today.
Yeah.
You found out today, aren't you? So, yeah, I mean, just getting around this city on an analog bike, if you're going from one side of the city to the other on the river, fine. But if you want to go out of the hills, it's pretty brutal around here. So
let's move on to quick fire questions.
Oh, okay.
Let's see if we can achieve it or not. Favorite country?
It's his favorite country to travel to.
Got yes. Travel to.
US and India.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, two countries.
Any reason why those two?
US, because it's so easy to have fun and everything's so convenient, and it's just, I love America. I think if there's a word, is an Americanophile a word? Just a real fan of America. I find it a fascinating place. India, because it's so interesting.
Yeah.
People are cool. It's different. It's so different that you can function there with English, which is good.
Yeah, it's true.
Which you can't do maybe so easily in Japan, I would say, which is equally interesting. But yeah,
I'd love to visit Japan.
Yeah, I love Japan too. But
road bikes or mountain bikes?
Mountain bikes.
Working in the UK or abroad?
I love working abroad.
Yeah,
yeah, it's fun.
Even with the travel.
The travel's the pain in the arse, but the actual, you know how you said every day's different? Every day's really different when you're working abroad, and that's why it's so good.
Yeah. If you had to have one meal for the rest of your life, what would that meal be?
If you'd asked me that question 4 years ago, it would have been something vegetarian. Because I was veggie for about a quarter of a century. It'd be steak and chips now.
Really?
Yeah, fillet steak and chips.
That'd be nice for breakfast.
Yeah, well, you could do that for breakfast, though. I've had it for breakfast.
Have you?
Yeah. In fact, me and on a YT shoot. This is when I just started eating meat. In a cafe or breakfast place in Lone Pine, California, shooting the Capra video. You know, the horror film with the goat.
Yes.
Showing the goat. Steak and chips every morning for work.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, you're interesting. You're the only person I know that started eating meat, not stopped eating meat.
I know.
Yeah.
It's really annoying now as well because veggie food is really good now. But when I first went veggie, you couldn't get it anywhere.
Yeah.
You'd ask for a veggie burger and you just get a burger bun.
True.
Yeah, no meat.
It's definitely a lot easier now.
Yeah.
Tea or coffee?
Tea.
Best country for food?
That's close, isn't it? Italy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Italy. If I had to eat one cuisine for the rest of my life, it's Italian.
Okay.
Yeah.
Worst country for food?
Probably somewhere in Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
Nowhere's that bad for food, though, is it really? I mean, you could say the US, but like, we had the conversation on the dog walk earlier that if you want to stop roadside to get fed in the US, you're happy if you see a Subway. That's the best. That's the best it's going to get, isn't it? Really, if you pull off the freeway.
Yes.
But you can get really good food in the US too. If you go looking for it, you get the best food and the worst food. I don't know, worst food. It's good everywhere.
I must admit, I had some questionable meals in Colombia.
Did you?
Yeah.
See, in my mind, if you hadn't have said that, I'd have thought, oh, it'd have been beautiful. I don't know what South American food is, but in mine, it'd all be just lovely kind of enchiladas and all that kind of stuff, sort of spicy beef and chicken. And
that was good, but there's a lot of bad. Was
it?
Yeah.
Rice dishes?
Yeah, there was a lot of food that I didn't recognise.
I'll tell you one of the worst things I've ever had. I was in Korea on a shoot in Busan in the south. Beautiful city. It's probably one of my favourite cities in South Korea. It's right on the sea, and it's like high rise and then sea and dock. It's a beautiful city. And a client took us out, and the client was Royal Salute whiskey. And we were having, because Korea barbecue, if you've ever had it, it's great. You kind of get your burner and your table and you fry up your own food. It's brilliant. So you get your meat or your fish or whatever it is you're cooking. You cook it yourself. It's great. It's really communal and lovely. And we're eating the stuff, and these guys were like, "Oh, you must try this." And in their broken English, we're eating it. And they're like, "Do you like it?" I'm like, "Not really. What is it?" I'll eat it, but it's beetles. You're eating river beetles. And it's like, oh, Jesus Christ. And all I was thinking, how there's this kind of so-called insects has been pushed as a food type now. All I'm thinking is, no, those beetles were disgusting.
No.
And they were covered in this lovely sort of spicy chili flakes and stuff, and they were still... All I could think was, that's the weirdest texture.
Yeah.
It's like a walnut, but not nice. It was awful.
High in protein.
Probably was, yeah. Probably really healthy. Just gross.
Let's move on to cameras. Best camera brand?
I don't know about this. I've only ever used Canon and Mamiya. I've never used... you use Sony quite a lot, don't you? Yeah. And I think I would probably quite easily flip over to Sony, but... everything I've got is Canon, so I won't. But I think they're all good compared to. You think how easy it is now to take good shots, whether it's video or stills.
I mean, I get by on the fact that the camera's disguising my lack of knowledge and ability.
Well, just go back. If you think about focusing,
yeah.
I mean, when I first started out, sort of shooting Bath rugby at the Rec with a manual focus 300mm lens on an old clunky Nikon F3. I mean, nothing was sharp. I mean, it was a real skill. So the first time I went, I came back, nothing was sharp.
Yeah.
Nothing that was moving anyway. And then even going to Southampton and photographing Saints, again, it was a real education. And then autofocus came in, and still autofocus wasn't great, but autofocus now on the new mirrorless cameras on Sony, and probably the same with Nikon and Canon I could speak for. It's bloody amazing.
Yes.
It just latches on someone's eye. You don't even have to be looking anymore. You can literally hold your camera up and just have a conversation. And you could be walking around and I'd have perfectly sharp frames of you. It's amazing.
I saw a clip on social media the other day of a Sony camera, and it had locked onto the eye of an insect.
Wow.
I think it was a cricket, and it just locked onto the eye. That's very clever, isn't it?
Yeah, and birds flying through the sky. And I remember doing a shoot for a wheel brand. I can't think of what it is now. Gravel wheels. And it was a horrible day on Dartmoor. So grey all day long in a forest, so even darker, on a black bike and a black rider wearing black with orangey kind of shades on. And it's still got his eye perfectly every time.
Amazing.
Yeah. Everything sharp. Amazing.
Hard conditions, that's shooting.
Yeah. And it was pin sharp. I just couldn't have done that if it wasn't for the camera.
Favourite lens?
The lens I use the most is a 70-200.
Is it?
Canon 2.8, yeah.
Yeah.
L lens. Brilliant.
Yeah, I've got the G Master 2 70-200.
That's the Sony version.
Sony version.
Yeah.
It's an incredible lens.
It is. It's heavy.
Yeah.
But it's a great lens.
Yeah.
Sharp all the way through.
Best person you've ever shot?
I think we already touched on Michael Palin, didn't we?
Yeah.
Do you know who I really liked? Although he's a funny character, is Bradley Wiggins.
Yeah.
He's a lunatic, isn't he?
Yeah,
he's
wild.
brilliant. He's a one-off, and just funny, just a funny guy. I'd like to spend more time in his company.
Do you ever get starstruck?
No, this is going to sound sad. The only person I've ever got starstruck, I wouldn't say I was starstruck, was Matthew Letizia.
Yeah.
Big Saints fan.
Well, it would have been early days, I guess, in your career as well.
Well, it wasn't. I didn't really shoot him in the early days.
Okay.
I did a couple of. I think one photo call with him, but it was when there were 4 or 5 other photographers.
Yeah.
When Alan Ball signed as a manager back in '94. But I did a shoot with him for a golf mag about 5 years ago. I thought, God, it's Matt Letizia. Took a shirt down and got it signed. See, I think it's the only time I've ever got a shirt signed. But I've actually asked to have a shirt signed.
Sure.
I've had shirts signed before, but I always get someone else to do it because I think it's a bit sad.
Proper fangirl.
Yeah, I know it was, yeah. But there's no one to ask to do it for me, so I had to do it myself.
Yeah.
But so I've got a shirt signed by sort of Italian players and stuff. But I always get the PR person to do it.
Yeah.
So it's not for me, it's for my son.
Of course.
Get his shirt signed.
Yeah. James.
Yeah, to James. My son's name too.
Anyone you'd still like to work with that you haven't already? Or is there anybody that you've almost worked with and then you didn't end up?
I always wanted to work with Gaza when he was a player.
Yeah.
I never did, and I got to do a shoot with him about 7 years ago. And we turned up at his house. No, we were supposed to meet him in a studio in London. And he didn't turn up. So we drove down to his flat in Bournemouth, and he was lying drunk on the floor.
No.
Yeah, he was going through a bad phase.
Yeah.
Then we had to take him to his rehab clinic. But then he came out sort of 6 weeks later, and the guy was a beast, like ripped, like totally transformed.
Oh.
So yeah, I got to shoot him. That was when he was a player I wanted to. Yeah, there probably are people I've forgotten now. Have you got anyone you ever really want to shoot that you?
I'd like
In the sport of cycling, so kind of, you think about like the Gwynns and people like that.
Yeah. I don't really, it's not individuals that really inspire me to shoot. It's the environment that I'm shooting in.
Yeah.
So there's places that I would love to shoot and there's places that I would love to just visit, I guess. And of some of the people that I've worked with, there's names in the cycling industry that I've worked with who I didn't really know much about before. And then they really impressed me, and they were the most incredible people.
Yeah.
And cyclists, professional cyclists, Fabian Cancellara, we worked with him, and he was just such a professional. And Marcel Kittel, in particular, we shot him shortly after he retired from racing.
That's when they're at the best, I think.
Yeah, and he was so enthusiastic, and he had his story to tell because he retired early from cycling and at the peak, really. I mean, he was still at the peak of his powers, and he said, "I'm done."
Good for him.
Yeah, and so that was it. Really inspiring, lovely person to meet, and So, in terms of people I'd like to work with in the future, I don't know. I think I won't know until I meet them. The dog is.
It's a big dog.
Making her way around all the tripods and cables strung out everywhere. So
She's been quite agile for an Irish setter.
She's doing well. Yeah. James, thank you for taking the time to speak to me. I guess to wrap up, where can people find you if it's on social media or to see your photography?
Social media, Cheadle Photo, Instagram, James Cheadle, Twitter. I don't really do Facebook. I don't like it. And then it's crap.
You're not the first person that
No,
said
it's just, it feels like something your mum does. And that's coming from me. And then jamescheadle.com.
Cool.
Yeah, brilliant.
Excellent. I'd like to definitely, there's a lot of subjects or talking points that we've not touched, so I'd like to talk again at some point, hopefully.
Yeah.
Be good.
Maybe up a mountain somewhere.
Up a mountain.
Yeah.
Okay. Be interesting to get
cowbells.
Yeah, cowbells. Don't get my girlfriend started on cowbells.
I'll be just chinking away in the background.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, that'd be lovely.
Snow-capped mountains.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm up for that. Okay.
Some Steins lager.
We'll aim for that next time.
Yeah. Cool.
Cheers.